Hello and welcome to lesson 3 of the OPTAVIA Healthy Habits Game Design Challenge. We are so excited that you're joining us today. My name is Lindsay Buckle and I'm the manager of strategy here at Legends of Learning. We are thrilled to be able to bring you lesson 3, game development of the fall 2021 Game Design Challenge. Our goal is to empower students through a virtual game design challenge with support from game development professionals. So today we have joining us members of the Calliope game team, and throughout the challenge, experts from OPTAVIA, GameRight, Ravensburger, Exploding Kittens, and Asmodee are all thrilled to be able to share their wealth of knowledge with students all over the world. They'll be discussing everything from healthy habits to game development, as well as prototyping to playtesting. And if you're a winner, you'll receive a premium swag bag with games from each of these amazing companies. Today, we'll be diving into lesson 3, game development. Lesson 3 explored how to finish developing your game and create a fully playable prototype. Here to speak with you all about lesson 3 is Chris Leader and Ken Franklin from Calliope Games. Chris is the director of fun at Calliope Games. He also designs games, including Roll For It, Mass Transit, and Back to the Future Dice Through Games. Ken is the senior yeoman at Calliope Games. He has designed family favorites such as the Mansky Caper and Back to the Future Dice Through Time. He plays all of his games to grin. Today, we are going to be asking Chris and Ken a variety of questions about game development. Many of these questions were submitted by challenge participants, so listen closely to hear your questions asked. If any of you still have questions, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation for questions from the audience as well. So, to kick it off today, we're going to start at the beginning. Once you have an idea for a game, what is the first step you take to develop that idea? Chris, why don't you take this one?
You got it. So having an idea for a game is interesting because there can be 2 different ways that you have an idea for a game. You might have an idea for a game that is about something. Let's say I want to make a game about beavers that create a city. And I'm like, that sounds like such a fun game. I really, really, really want to make that game. Or you may have an idea for the type of game it's going to be. It may be a bidding game, or it might be a card game. So when you have that first step to develop an idea, sometimes it's really important to find the other half of that. So if you have the theme to the game, you want to find how the game's going to play. If you have ideas for how a game could play, sometimes it's good to find that theme you can grab onto. Because what's really important is if you're going to live with that game for a long time as you develop it, you want to make it something that's fun for you, whether that's fun because you want to play it and do that thing that the game does, or because you have so much fun with that theme that you want to live with that idea for a long time. So for me anyway, when I have an idea for a game, whether it's the theme or whether it's the game mechanisms, I try to find something that's going to hook me and keep me going for quite a while.
Those all great points, Chris. My first thing is I've got to write it down. If I don't write it down, it will float away. I have ideas and all sorts of times. I will be watching something and think, oh, that's cool, or something will surprise me as I'm walking down the street or doing my running around town, or something will make me laugh, or something somebody says that will trigger something off. And those moments of inspiration are wonderful, but they don't stick in your brain very much. So get it written down. I have a stack of paper, pads here, and I always make sure that I have at least one that's got a blank page on it. I have about a dozen of these notebooks that I write. I keep a journal for each game idea. Get it written down. And then as you get more ideas, you can flesh that out and you have a recording of the entire process that got your idea going.
That's a good idea, Ken. I'm going to write that down.
What?
Okay, you owe me 7 cents for using my idea. All right.
Yes, and we were just talking about earlier that this was also an idea that came up in lesson 2 during the prototyping stage. So it seems like taking notes and writing your ideas down is incredibly important no matter what stage of game development that you're in.
Sure.
Awesome. So now you have an idea, you're taking that first step to develop your idea. What do you normally use for game pieces as you go through that prototyping?
I have an entire shelf of pieces left over from games I don't play anymore. If it's a game that I don't think anybody's going to play, I will take the pieces out of it, put them into baggies, and leave them on that shelf. So I've got thousands of different shapes and colors and things like that. Pieces of cardboard and paper, blank cards. You can buy 500 blank playing cards from Amazon for not very much money. Cut things out of poster board or cardboard. All of those things, you don't want to spend a lot of money on the pieces. Get something that you can play with as simply as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think that the more time you spend thinking of what you're going to use as your components, your game pieces in the beginning, the more time you're spending away from actually just getting to the fun of the game or breaking the game so that you can fix it, because that happens very often. So like Ken, I always have just leftover pieces from other games. I have scavenged dice and pawns out of existing games to use them as well. But yeah, you just you want to use whatever you have at your disposal, because the biggest thing is to fail faster. Get the thing out there, make the game not work so that you can fix it, and whatever pieces you have laying around, use whatever you can.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on what Chris just said here. Remember that when you're building this game, you're going to find all the ways that are not fun. And you want those so that you can get those out of the way and leave what's fun. That's through the whole process. And so the time you're spending doing stuff that's not playing your game is going to take away from the fun. So you want to stay focused on that whenever possible. Chris and I have spent so many times with just a Sharpie, some cardboard, and some little cubes or circles or dice.
It's true.
That's how it gets started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's a great thing just for all kids to remember that no matter where they are, no matter what they have access to, game development is available to them. Even just with, like you said, a marker and a piece of paper, everyone can be a game designer.
Right.
Awesome. So during the development process, how do you decide what you want the players to feel as they play your game?
Okay, it's a 3-letter word. Fun. So you want the players to feel like they're having fun. Now, that fun can be different types of fun. Sometimes that fun is a thinky kind of fun. You're puzzling through something, but you want to feel like you've got moments where you can celebrate how well you're doing in the game. Sometimes that is having fun because you're just laughing and the thing you're doing, maybe it's a cooperative game and you're working together and you're high-fiving and you're having fun that way. But the thing that we always come back to is, what's the path that leads to the fun for the player? And that's the path you want to take. You can go so far down the wrong path because you are trying to fix some little thing, and then you stop and you go, is any of this fun, or do we want to try a different path? I'll give you a quick example of a game that we're actually working on right now. We spent months and months developing a game to be a specific kind of card game, and we kept trying to put out fires and fix things. And there was a moment where we stopped in the middle of this. This was me and Ken and our friend Kevin. We were all designing this game. We stopped and we said, wait, are we having fun with this? And we realized, no, we're not having fun. We're grinding. We're not enjoying this. And we threw out ideas and we hit upon the silliest, most fun way of doing this game. And it turned out to be the exact right thing. And that's what we're going with the game now. So you want the players to feel like they're having fun, whatever way that the game is fun. And as designers, you want to be having fun designing the game too. And if you're not, you have to ask yourself, do I want to keep going down this path, or do I want to get back to a better one?
Right. And there are many different people, and they have different ideas of fun. There are some people that enjoy the fun of being in combat with another player, or being on a team that's in combat with another team, a Fortnite kind of game. There are people who enjoy racing for a goal. There are people that enjoy solving puzzles, as Chris said. There are people that enjoy playing with words. There are people that enjoy guessing things. Think about who you want to play this game with, and let that define what fun is for that particular game. I've got over 300 games, and they all are fun in a lot of different ways. And depending on who I invite over to my house, I will pull out an entirely different game because their idea of fun is completely different. So writing down what your goal is, who you want to play this game with, what your definition of fun is going to help guide a lot of your design and development process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great point that both of you brought up, which is that different people have different ideas of what is fun. And so really thinking about your audience, what age level, what kind of group, is it a friends, is it a family, is it strangers, and what's going to bring out the most fun for that particular audience for the game.
Now there's a bear trap here, and I don't want anybody to step in this bear trap. Chris and I, and a lot of game designers, love creating our own idea. The sooner and the more often you get others involved, the more likely you are to have something good. I do evaluation of games for a major game development company, and I evaluate rule books. And you can tell if it's a rule book that one person has written for what their version of the world would be, but nobody else on the planet could understand it. And you can tell rule books that say, hey, let's do this together. So you make sure you involve other people at every phase of development.
Yeah, that is a really good tip. And, during the lesson plans of this, we have playtesting with different groups of people, and the teams of students can be up to 5 people on a team. So it really allows for that collaboration, that kind of back and forth with all these different ideas, which is really awesome.
Now, one thing that came out over the course of the pandemic is a renewed interest in solo games.
Yes.
Solitaire games have a new niche. So if it's a game that you want people to play by themselves, that's fine. But you want lots of people to play it by themselves. So you still have to involve other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good point. Well, awesome. So we've been talking a lot about, if things are going well, how you get started. But of course, as you go through the development portion, how do you know if a part of your game just doesn't work?
Is it fun? Do other people understand it? And don't be afraid to do this to it. Because in order to have good ideas, you have to have a lot of ideas. All of us have had bad ideas. There are lots of crossouts in here, okay? Don't be, as Chris said, fail faster. Put all the stuff into it that you think might work, play it, and when you say, well, that didn't work, my son Jeremy tried one of my earlier designs, and I thought I had this really cool way to turn Metroid into a board game, and it worked really good. And I said, okay, let's start. And he found a way to finish the whole game in one turn and said, well, that was fun. No, it wasn't.
And if you notice what Ken said, it goes back to what we talked about before. When you ask, how do you know if a part of your game doesn't work? You alone will not know if a part of your game doesn't work. You can't. You might solve a little bit here and there. You may be able to trim off some sharp edges, but you alone, you came up with the idea. Your brain may not let you see how it's not going to work. So the answer is invite others to try out your game and let them be honest with you. Let them tell the truth about how they feel. They'll tell you if a part of your game doesn't work. And then the most important and the toughest thing is to listen to that feedback and don't be defensive. Don't say, well, that's the whole game. No, it must be in the game. No, you have to say, if someone outside of the game is telling you something's not working, You got to take that feedback, listen to it, and then decide if it's something that needs to be tweaked or something that needs to be torn out, thrown away, and completely replaced.
When you're showing people a game to test, there's a big advantage to writing a rule book, handing it to the players, and say, I'd like you to play this game. If you don't understand this rule, ask me. Otherwise, I'm going to shut up. And then sit back and take notes and watch what they do rather than ask them questions. Chris knows that in my first year, I didn't do that well at all. When I was an early game designer, I was always interrupting and saying, oh, no, you're supposed to do it this way. That's wrong. That slows things down. But write it out, put it in the hands of other people, and just watch and take notes. That'll get you to the answers a lot faster.
Absolutely. So we've kind of already answered this one, but now that you know that a part of your game doesn't work, what do you do when you identify that problem? So, you've been playtesting with some other people, they didn't understand something or something wasn't fun. What do you do next?
Well, I think, we did touch on it before. I think what you have to do is you have to ask yourself, is the part that's a problem in the game, is it a foundational part of the game? Is it a big plank that's holding up the rest of the game? Think of it like the game Jenga. Is this part of the game, if you take it out, is it going to make the whole thing topple over? If that's the case, then what you have to do with that problem is make it into something that works for the game. And sometimes there's a fundamental part of the game, or maybe when you designed the game, you said, I want this to be this type of game. If I remove it, it's not going to be that type of game. If that's the case, then you have to find a way to make it work. And if it's not one of those foundational things, if the Jenga tower will not fall when you remove it, then take it out. Sometimes you'll find that the game is much more fun when it's more streamlined. And so if it's not something that's absolutely necessary to the game, sometimes taking it out makes the game better. And you go, I didn't think this game would work without that rule. I can't believe it works even better without it. So it comes back to listening to that feedback and then really thinking about what function that thing in that problem serves in the game. If it's not crucial, take it out and see if it's a better game without it.
That's exactly right. Again, depending on the kind of game, it could be a game with a 2-page rule book or a game with a 25-page rule book. Less rules is always better.
Yes.
Our
good friend Ray always says people can remember 3 rules. Beyond that, you start to lose them. So always think about it. Can you bucket into the 3 rules?
The wrong thing to do when you identify the problem in the game is to add another rule. Yeah. The right way to solve a problem in the game is to find a different way of describing it or change that part so that it becomes more intuitive and people are not thinking about the game. Instead, they're enjoying the game.
Yes.
If they're trying to figure out, wait, what can I do next? They're not having as much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's all that trial and error, taking one thing out, putting one thing back, moving things around, just kind of see what ends up working at the end of the day.
Did that sound mean we won a prize? I don't know.
Probably means I have something else on my calendar, but that's going to be ignored. But awesome. So we've been talking a lot about, working with other people. And I know that you guys talked about designing a game even together. So a lot of the students participating in the challenge are working with other students. So Good. When you're collaborating with another designer, what do you do when you guys disagree?
First of all, stop. Say out loud what the other person is doing that is good. And say, this is something that we have to solve together. So that you don't make the disagreement about the worth of the other person or worth of you. It's really easy, especially when you're starting out as a designer, to get imposter syndrome. Oh, this has to be perfect because I really stink. And if anybody finds out, I'll be dead. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go there. You're designing a game, therefore you're having fun and what you're doing is worthwhile and you're worthwhile doing it. So keep the disagreement about who the people are. Acknowledge what you have that's good, and then the both of you can focus in on solving the problem.
Yep. So there's a couple of things there. Obviously, sometimes you're collaborating with someone and maybe you didn't have a say in who you're collaborating with. And then that can be a little bit different. But what I would say is, if given the chance, make sure that you collaborate with people who you see eye to eye with. That doesn't mean you always think the same thing. In fact, there's a lot to be said for collaborating with people whose brains work much different from yours, because that can come up with a much better game in the end. But you want to collaborate with people who you can have an honest conversation with. And sometimes it's good to say up front in the beginning, let's make sure that the game is the most important thing. The fun of the game is what's most important. So if you have a disagreement, or if there's two ideas pitched and they're completely different, the conversation should be, what's going to make the game more fun? And sometimes one thing will rise to the top, and it's like, okay, let's do that. But it should always be the conversation should always go, let's try this one, and if it doesn't work, we will go with the other one, because you have to try things. Ken said it just right. You have to have a lot of ideas to have a good idea, and so try the different things. So if you disagree, hopefully you've got a relationship with your collaborator where you can say, do you mind if we try it this way? And if it doesn't work, which I have no idea if it will or not, then let's try it the other way. And hopefully there's no egos getting in the way. And someone will say, okay, let's try that thing out. And knock on wood, if you got a good collaborator with you, and you're working towards a fun game that you both want more than anything, one person will step aside or allow something to be tried before their thing. And that's hopefully the relationship that you have.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good thing, is just focusing on the game and not about the actual other people. And like you said, everybody maybe gets a chance to try their idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, right now we are in lesson 3, game development. And next week is lesson 4, playtesting. So a big question that people have is, how do you know when your game is ready for playtesting?
If it's longer than 45 minutes after you've written down the idea.
Moving on.
I think it's I think sometimes the time from idea to playtesting can be seconds. It can be, I jot down some notes, I tear out a piece of paper and I grab a die and I start rolling it and I play. I'm a big proponent on playtesting as early and as often as possible. It can help your own sanity, because if you have an idea and you quickly mock it up and you test it yourself, you can go, oh no, that completely didn't work. Moving on. But I think that it's, as far as playtesting with other people, I think that as long as you have the rules or the gist of the game set in your head, so that it's not of a jello quality, it's more firmed up. You don't want to be asking the playtesters the rules to the game. That's no good, because then they become weird collaborators and not playtesters. So as long as you have an idea of what the game is supposed to do and you can answer the majority of the questions, I think you're ready to play test with other people. If you still don't have the answers to some basic things, like what's the win condition, maybe it's not quite ready for play testing. But as long as you have how to set it up, how to play, how to win, you can start bringing people in for play testing right away. At least that's what I think. Anyway. Ken may disagree.
Yeah, well, no, I think you're right on, Chris. But playtesting has more than one definition. Playtesting as part of developing the game is for you and your friends and maybe a collaborator. Playtesting with people who've never seen it to verify that it's good, I think, is what you're getting at here. And I think what you need for that is an understandable set of rules and pieces that can be recognized by the team.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
Simple. pretty simple stuff for that. But yeah,
And you put it in front of them, you get your notepad and you watch.
I love it. Yeah, I love that mantra, as early as possible. Get those
Early
people
and
in
often.
there and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of your insightful answers. We're now going to open up the floor to questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions, either for me about the challenge or for Chris and Ken about developing games, you can go ahead and submit them into the question and answer box at the bottom of your screen now. While we wait for everyone to start typing, one question did come in during your presentation. So I'll give that one to you now. What do you do when your game has more players than you have to test
it? Well, you go where players are. There are restaurants that have game nights and that have game cafes. There are places called protospiels and unpubs where people are just looking to test games. Chris, what else we got?
So just to make sure I got this right. So let's say you have like a 6-player game, but you don't have 6 people to test it with, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that kind of.
Yeah, and that's be honest with you, that's been one of the toughest things over this past 63 years we've been in this pandemic.
Yeah.
Is not being able to get together with a large group of people. So Ken and I work for Calliope Games, and one of the things that Calliope is all about is making sure that our games play up to 6 or even 8 or 12 people. And so as we're developing games for Calliope, it's really been tough to test at the higher player count, because you can't get together with as many people, and you certainly don't get together with as many strangers as you used to be able to find people at a game store or something like that. One of the things that we did, and this is obviously a little bit more advanced, but one of the things that we did was we used online tabletop simulator sites. Sites where you can upload your game. I think sometimes these are used to test out some of these prototypes. We used Tabletop Simulator, and we would invite people to try out the game that way. If you can't get together around a physical table, getting together around a tabletop simulator or one of those types of things has been the second best thing you can do. Now, it doesn't work for all games. If you have like a dexterity game where you're supposed to be stacking things or doing things like that, it's a little harder to test that way. But I think that the new technology, just like with Zoom, like we're on now and everything else, these were technologies that emerged during this pandemic and proved that they were ways to keep people together. And so getting a higher player count with Tabletop Simulator in some cases was the only way we could do it. And I got to give kudos to Ken, because he took the Calliope library of games and he digitized them and he used his magic and he made really amazing versions of those games for people to play. And we were able to keep some game nights going virtually throughout the pandemic. So that's what I would add, is those types of things can be really, really helpful for getting more people to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those are great suggestions. Either go somewhere where there's people in person or put it online where there's a bunch of people digitally.
Yeah.
So awesome. We had one more question come in, and during the challenge, students can make either board, card, or dice games. So I think the question's kind of off of that. But the student was wondering, how do you know what type of game is best for your idea? So let's say you have an idea about a game for healthy motion. How do you know what type? Is that a board game, a card game, a dice game, a video game? You know, how do you move forward with that?
That's a great question. I would say that goes back to what kind of game do you want to make? What kind of game do you want to live with for a while? Do you like rolling dice? Do you like, holding cards and playing cards? Do you like moving a pawn around a board? That's such an interesting theme for a game, and it could go any of those ways. You could have it be a dice game where you roll the dice that tells you what types of movement you've got to do, and that kind of thing. You can do it as a card game where it could be like, you have to play against other people and have them do certain things. You could have it as a board where it's, there's movement, and when you land on certain things, you have to take certain actions. but that, I think it comes down at that point to deciding which of those you would have the most fun with and go with it that way. So in that case, be a little selfish. Be like, what's the game that I would want to play? Because in the end, if you're going to tell people about this game and you're going to have people play it, you want to be excited about it. So I would say pick the one that you think is the most fun, because I think any of those would be great for that theme. Now it's just a matter of which type of fun do you want to have with the game.
I like the idea of a mind map. When I have a question that I don't know the answer to, I will often use a mind map. And what you do is you put the 1 or 2 words in the middle, draw a circle around it. And for 5 minutes, everything you think of, you draw, okay? All right, well, maybe it's a board game, okay? And maybe we're going to move. Oh, wait, maybe it's a dice game. And everything you think of, you write. There are no bad thoughts. Get all the thoughts out there on the paper. And when you're done thinking of new things, then you sit down and look at it. And your idea will come to you. So what you're doing is basically sweeping out your brain about what you think about that concept. And that gets all of the confusing things out of the way and gets you a nice direction to go in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Like all those ideas, like you said, which direction can I go? Let's draw them all out and see what they all look like before we make that decision.
That's right.
That's awesome.
One of the things as a designer you can get in real trouble with is censoring yourself when you're having ideas.
Yes.
Let yourself generate all the ideas and then go back and pick the best ones, rather than saying, well, maybe I should do this. Oh, no, that's bad. Maybe I should do this. Oh, no, that's bad. You don't get anywhere doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it might be like the 3rd or 4th iteration of an idea. Maybe the first one doesn't really work, but maybe the 3rd one down the path does.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we have one last question for you guys today. It's kind of a 2-part question. So what is your favorite kind of game to develop? Board, card, dice? And is that different than your favorite kind of game to play?
Ken, you want to start with that one?
I like playing all games. I mean, well, not games with weapons. I'm not a big fan of dueling hand grenades. I don't like that. But board, dice, card games, I love them all. Favorite ones, I like ones that are puzzly, and there are puzzly games with boards and cards and dice. So that's my favorite thing. But my number one thing is games where your winning move involves doing something that helps another person. And that's pretty much every game I design has that element in it. Chris, I know what your answer is.
I love dice. Dice. I mean, heck, look, I got Roll For It. That's all about dice. Back to the Future, Dice Through Time. Most of my designs feature dice. And the reason I like dice so much is because you never know what's going to happen. There's always a chance that you can come from behind, or there's a chance that you're riding on top of the world and you were going to come tumbling down because of what you rolled. So I love dice games. I try to include them, and when I try to avoid them, that's when bad things happen and the voices start talking to me. Yeah, so I love dice. And the other thing that I love is cooperative games. It's, to me, it's so satisfying to play a game with other people against the game itself. The game is trying to beat you, and you and your team have to figure out a way to make it work. So there's a lot of fun dice games that involve cooperation. I love those types of things. So it's not to say I can't design without dice. I don't like to. That's not to say that I don't like, I won't play games that aren't cooperative. I absolutely will. But I find myself liking that because at the end of the game, no one is left feeling miserable unless you all lost. But usually if you all lose a cooperative game, you're all laughing about how you lost together, and it's a shared story. And I love shared stories like that because it means that I didn't have a wonderful story because you had a terrible story.
Exactly.
I like it's the non-zero sum thing. I don't like the fact that in order for me to win, you have to lose. So I like cooperative games quite a bit.
Yes, cooperative games are really kind of seeing a resurgence right now, and that's awesome. Because like you said, it creates that shared experience for everyone where even if you lose, you all had a good time doing it together.
Yeah, and that's the newest game we made with Calliope is Mass Transit, which is also a cooperative game about working together. And the fun twist in that is you can't talk to each other about the cards that you have. So it's like a puzzly kind of a fun thing. You're cooperating, but you're like, please play that card in your head, but you can't say it out loud. So cooperation, man, it's fun. It's fun, fun, fun.
That's awesome. Yes. And that is a perfect lead into the last thing that we have to talk about today, which is the fact that Calliope Games has generously provided a coupon code to all participants of the challenge. You'll see it here, Calliope Legends 2021. And you can use it to purchase any of their games, including all of the ones that you heard about today, and all of the ones created by these two amazing designers we have with us today. Yes, Ken?
Yeah, it's all, Calliope Games.
Now, is it Calliope Legends 21 or is it Calliope Legends 2021?
It is Calliope Legends 21.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And it'll be sent out with the recording of this video, so everybody has it in their email address.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great deal. I'm gonna go buy some Calliope games.
Yes, absolutely. So you can use it at checkout for 20% off any of the games that you'd like to purchase.
Now I will just put a little plug in here. If you happen to buy Mansky Caper, it's all about a mobster named Big Al Mansky. Big Al has a Twitter account at Mansky Caper, and you can go back in time to 1925 and tease him about how well you destroyed his mansion if you want, and he will answer.
Oh my gosh.
He's not always a nice guy, but you can have a conversation with Big Al if you want.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Well, I hope everyone checks out Mansky Caper and all of the other amazing games that Calliope has to offer. So at that point, thank you so much for attending Rolling with Change, How to Develop Your Game. We have come to the close of lesson 3, and we're so thankful that all of you joined us here today. So if you, again, have any other questions for myself, Ken, or Chris as you go forward, you can feel free to email them to events@legendsoflearning.com, and we'll get you an answer right away. Best of luck with the rest of the challenge. We hope you have so much fun. Like everyone talked about today, having fun is the most important part of any game. And so we hope that you have fun and add some fun to your game designs as you go along. And we cannot
I want to play your games.
Yes, we can't wait to see all of your submissions on December 15th. And all of us will be playing through them and having a great time. So thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.